Hey everyone, I am considering buying a few new sewing tools, but getting new sewing tools, it can be a little bit of a risky affair. They're not always cheap and sometimes they don't really deliver what one had expected. At least that has been a case for me in many situations. So I figured I should do a video where I actually ask you for help in giving me some feedback on these particular sewing tools if you find that they are worthwhile purchase, and also of course if you have any particular brands that you recommend. So without further ado, here comes some sewing tools that I'm considering buying. And the first tool I'm considering buying is a specialty presser foot for making flat fell seam. You know, that folded in edge that you can see on sportswear jackets and jeans in particular, I think, are two common ones. Now, I don't own one of these presser fit. I've done flat fell seam the manual way, but obviously I'm really curious to know if getting a flat fell seam will actually make that process much easier. And I have a Bernina, a vintage Bernina, and they're luckily still available presser foot for making flat fell seam that is the Bernina brand, so that is all covered, but it's definitely not a cheap presser foot because, as we say in Sweden, what you lose at the entry fee you make up for at the carousels, basically meaning that we usually end up spending a lot of money buying attachment and things for our precious machines because they do add up quite quickly, so I don't want to make the wrong decision here. So I'm really curious, as I said, if you find that a worthwhile presser foot to buy, or if you actually find that the sort of manual method of doing this is good enough. So I really like to know your experience with using the flat fell seam. And the reason I'm asking is because I'm planning later this year to make Suaholic's Minura jacket, I think it's called. I always feel so embarrassed because I don't always remember the exact name of the patterns, but it's a nice sort of all-weather jacket. So I want to make flat fell seam to make it more professional because that's a beautiful finish. So that's why I'm particularly considering now getting one of those flat fell seams. And the second thing I'm considering buying, I wonder if it's worth it, is getting one of those thread snippers. You know, those tiny little scissors that has like a spring that sort of chops the threads really easily. Now, I've not really seen the value of getting one of those. I just use my regular scissors. But a while back I was at the fabric store trying out a sewing machine, and the owner had one of those little thread snippers. And I thought, wow, what a nice thing to have next to your sewing machine. And I know many of you use that particularly too. So I'm thinking maybe they are actually worth investing in. And is this thread tip is something you would recommend? And if so, do you have any brands that you can recommend? I'm sure, as with a lot of other things, there are price ranges. My question is, of course, do I need to spend a lot of money or can I buy a cheaper one? So if you have any ideas and suggestions about that, I would love to know, because that's definitely one of those things I realized that I might actually want, even though I didn't know it before I tried one of those. But I know it's a really popular tool, so I assume that it is quite good to have. And the third thing I'm considering buying, which is a bit of an investment, I think, I don't think they're too cheap, is a wood clapper, or I think it's also called a Tailor's anvil. What it basically is a tool that you use for pressing when you're making wool garments. And I recently made a tailor jacket, and that made me understand the value of proper pressing. I just use a regular wood block that I use in the kitchen for cutting things, and that worked quite well. But I've heard so many people swear that this Tailor clapper is a wonderful little tool, and I think it's basically like a multi-tool. So the bottom of the clapper is basically one wood block, and that is used to soak up the moisture when you're pressing wool. And the upper part is very shaped and sharp, and that is used to access those difficult to press corners like the collar and things like that, where you need to have a more narrow tool. So it does seem very nifty. It's also a beautiful piece of woodwork. So I'm definitely curious if you have any experience with these clappers, or anvil as I think they call as well. And if you have any particular seller or brand that you can recommend me, I would love to know, because as I said, I think it's a bit of an investment, so it's definitely not something I want to buy unless I'm sure that it's actually really useful and it's better than using the regular cutting wood blocks that I've been using so far. So please tell me if that is worthwhile investment. I would love to know. And the fourth thing I'm considering is getting a combined seam and hem folder for my cover stitch machine. Now I have a Janome Cover Pro 2000, and for the Janome cover stitch machine, this is a standard attachment that you can buy. It can be adjusted in sizing, and what it does is that it folds the fabric, making sure that it's even, and also works as seam guide so that you have an even stitch all the way through. It does seem like a really nifty tool, and it's done of 30 metal instead of plastic. I had one of those for my old cover stitch machine. I didn't really like that one. So, and this is obviously for the Janome, but I know that other cover stitch machine has similar solution. I think the Yuki has one as well, and I'm sure a lot of other brands. So if you have any experience using this kind of combi seam guide and hem fold, I would love to know, because definitely I think if I was able to use it properly, it would definitely make things speed up the process of hemming. And I do quite a lot of knits and hem a lot on knits, so I'm curious to see if that could actually be an improvement. In fact, the Janome doesn't even have a ruler on the bed of the sewing machine, so you definitely need to use other tools to make sure that it's stitched straight. So definitely, perhaps that's one of the reasons they don't have it, because they can sell those expensive seam guides and lure people like me buying them. Anyways, if you have any experience with one of these, I would love to know, and if it's a worthwhile investment. So these are the tools I'm considering buying. Presser foot for flat felt seam, a seam guide for the cover stitch machine, a Tailor's clapper, and a thread snipper. So if you have any suggestions, ideas, please share in the comment section. I would love to know, and I'm sure some of you are also considering a few of the things I am considering. So I think I'm not just doing this video for me. I'm sure other people are also curious about some of the things I mentioned in this video. So all opinions are very much appreciated. Now, stitch safe, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye!